Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Series podcast. How are we? Oh, good evening, good morning, good night, whatever sort of time you guys are actually watching this in. If you're watching it live or if you're watching it on the replays, whatever sort of time period it is you are actually watching. My name is, as per usual, Bobby effin Salastar. And welcome to the second episode of the Nerdic Series. Not done one of these for a couple of weeks now, or even like a little mini like gaming sort of thing. Where I'll be chatting to you like this and then be playing whatever random, piece of shit game in the background. You know what I mean? And so welcome. Anyways, so I sort of aim to have this probably go on for about half an hour, going on 45 minutes, I reckon. But excuse me, bloody hell. But so how are we? Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Series podcast. At the minute I will be playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla in the background. And then I've started up a new save and what have you, because it's obviously been a while since I've done one of these, and I've created a couple of save games since and what have you, and me being me, I've since forgotten which save game was the save game that I was doing, that I was using for this. So I've since made a new one. This was a couple of days ago, and what have you. This is literally right at the start of the game. And what have you? I'm about 45 minutes in. I've literally just... Have I even got to Valka's Hut yet to do that? No, see, I've not even done the Valka's Hut mission where you find out that you have those visions of betraying Sigurd. Do you know what I mean? I've not even got that far in the game either, about apparently fucking betraying Sigurd. But, I've literally just got back from... in the game from who's the fucking clan funeral is right at the start from his place from being kidnapped and whatever. As I said, I'm literally 3/4 of an hour into it, and so for anyone who's interested in, for those of you that don't know, I am a sort of part-time sort of referee and ring announcer in the British wrestling scene. For anyone who's interested in upcoming shows that I've got coming up, I am in Bradford next Saturday, so in 6 days' time, on Saturday the 28th of September. I'm at the St. Peter's Church in Shipley, which is in northwestern Bradford. For Kingdom Wrestling. I'll be making my second appearance for Kingdom Wrestling there, refereeing. So I'll be sharing for the first time actually with Simon Williams, a very, very good and very talented referee from the Northwest. Very talented referee. Never actually met the bloke in person, but I know loads of people who have only got, amazing words to say about the bloke, so I'll be sharing refereeing duties with Simon Williams. He works for multiple companies up and up the Northwest, sort of northeastern sort of areas. And, so that'll be fun. And, so already announced for that show for the Kingdom Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship, Gareth Angel will be putting his championship on the line against a gentleman who will be returning to professional wrestling for the first time in over a year of discipline, and will probably culminate this multiple year-long feud between Gareth Angel and Discipline. I believe Wesleyan Serico is on this show as well, who was a finalist in the Gladiators series earlier on this year. I think he's on this show. I did see that he got an out for him, but whether or not he's still got to be there, you know what I mean? But Yeah, so who else? So what else is going on? So we've got we've got a tag match between Dave Douglas and the Bradford Bruiser Joel Cobra of the Modern Day Mafia MDM taking on Project Mayhem's Shawal the Great and the brand new British Promotions heavyweight champion Dante Durden. Um, that sort of coming off a bit of a scrap from last time we were at St. Peter's in Shipley at the start of last month of August. I think it was the 10th of August. I think we were there. Um, and yeah, because there was a tag match between Joel Cobra and Dante. Well, it was meant to be Dave Douglas and Joel Cobra of the Modern Day Mafia taking on the Zuberweights. Unfortunately, Dave Douglas was injured at the time, and then also Dante Durden was meant to be wrestling on this show for the new British Promotions Championship. This was before he actually won it against the at the time champion, the first ever champion of Tommy Rocker. Unfortunately, as well, Tommy Rocker was injured at the time. So, Kingdom Wrestling general manager, I think his name's Phil Robinson or something like that, put together a tag match between Joel Cobra and Dante Durden to take on the Zuberweights of Jack Barron and Philip Michaels of the Zuberweights. Joel Cobra and Dante Durden walked away victorious from that match, but there was a bit of kerfuffle, a bit of bickering going on between Joel and Dante after the match, which then led to a scrap between Shawal the Great and Dante and Joel Cobra just after the match, which is now leading into this tag match. Of Joel Cobra and Dave Douglas. He since recovered from his injury that he was suffering with at the start of last month to take on Dante Durden and Shawal the Great. Excuse me. And then we'll also be seeing who else is on this show. Again, Project Mayhem's last true son of Odin of Gunnison will be making his way to Kingdom Wrestling. Against Ninja Ryu. That'll be a bit of a mixed sort of match, if you know what I mean. And yeah, who else is going to be wrestling on that show? What else has been announced? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Who's wrestling next Saturday? You got Bentley. So you got a gentleman by the name of Bentley, who he will be taking on Bradford's very own, the star attraction, Jimmy Jackson. That'll be a really good match, I think. I've shared the ring with Jimmy Jackson. This was the last time I was with Kingdom at the start of last month. He's literally one of the best wrestlers that British wrestling have to offer. Then again, I could say that about several people, I think, that I've shared the ring with, multiple people, you got Jimmy Jackson, Martin Grant, Johnny Storm, Brett Semtex, Jack Landers, Harley Hudson, Tracy, Cason Riley, who else, Jack Landers, Furio, multiple people that that I've come across that are literally, very good, talented wrestlers. Kobe Nitro, who was wrestling at Fightmare, WWE Fightmare, just gone. He's soon to be going on a tour of Japan. Jack Landers has not long got back from a tour of Japan. Gareth Angel, some absolutely fantastic wrestlers, Tiger McGuigan, British wrestling legend Tiger McGuigan from the legendary McGuigan family. Dan Domain, I think it's got a bright future. West Danger, I think it's got a bright future. Callum and Jakes, that again, I think that there's like a small sort of group of people, that involve the likes of Callum and Jakes, Dan Domain, Remus Kane, Gung Ho Muttley, Sammy Blue, that I think aren't spoken about as often as what they should be, and aren't wrestling as often as what they should be. Do you know what I mean? Is these guys are massively dedicated, massively passionate about the business, massively passionate about British wrestling, and massively passionate about professional wrestling. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. Speaking of Sammy Blue, we've got a match next Saturday for Kingdom of Supersonic Sammy Blue versus Slugger Hampton. This will be a rematch from Kingdom's last show. Well, I say last show, the last show at St. Peter's in Shipley in Bradford on August 10th. After Slugger Hampton picked up the victory after attacking Gung Ho Muttley backstage. So but yeah, like again, guys like Tommy Rocket, I've worked with a few times. Gunnison, he's fantastic. Aaron Sharp, he's now coming to the end of his career. Wes and Serico, I've worked on the same show as him before. Last October at a show in Leeds. But yeah, like again, Tommy Rocker, Big Duncan, oh, Jesus Christ. Jack Landers, like the UK Pitbulls, they're, multiple time tag team champions currently. They've won literally dozens upon dozens upon dozens upon dozens of tag team championships, dozens of times over. They're literally the most dominant tag team in Europe, not just the UK, but literally the most dominant tag team in Europe. Do you know what I mean? They're the current World of Sport tag team champions. They're the current Big Top Wrestling Promotions tag team champions. They're the current Falling Star Wrestling tag team champions. Do you know what I mean? And I believe they're closing into like a year-long reign, or going up to a somewhat of a year-long reign with the Falling Star tag titles. They literally won the World of Sport tag titles a couple of weeks ago at Epic Studios in Norwich. Is that a fucking dead deer? No, that's a rock. But yeah, like I've personally worked with several people who I think deserve a lot more attention than what they are actually getting. Do you know what I mean? But what am I doing? All right. Right, so I now need to go chat with a couple of people because why the bloody hell not? Oh no, I don't really want to do that particularly. Oh jeez, all right. But yeah, so like if anyone's watching live, then if you've got any questions or anything, then please do feel free to ask. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. I'll see the king now. But yeah, and then like there are a couple of promotions that I think need a bit more attention than what they're actually getting. You've got Championship Extreme Wrestling CXW. I'm friendly with the promoter there, Paris. Adam Paris, his name is. Not trying to blow too much wind like up that. Like trying to blow too much wind up that bloke's ass, but. Literally, I don't even really care what other promoters even hear this. That bloke is quite literally my favourite promoter at the moment. CXW are an absolutely fantastic company with an absolutely fantastic promoter who goes around the Braintree area, which is where they're based, down in Essex. dressed as the Macho Man Randy Savage, door to door, canvassing door to door, selling tickets for his shows and actually sells his fucking shows as well. Like he'll go around door to door, he'll go to shopping centres, he'll go to, car parks, he'll go to, town centres and, like hand flyers out, be like, oh yeah, come to such and such and what have you, do you know what I mean? Come to this show, come to that show, come to this show, come to that show. Do you know what I mean? And actually sells his shows out as well, which I think, to me, that just cinches it. Do you know what I mean? You get promoters out there. I know a few of them that, literally do the very most minimalistic amount of work possible when it comes to, promoting and, like advertising the shows publicly and what have you. And, and then they wonder why they only get, like 20 people in the audience. Do you know what I mean? Which I think, takes the biscuit of it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, if you don't put the work in, then you ain't going to get the people in the audience. Do you know what I mean? But, yeah, so, but hey, do you know what I mean? But, like, there are other promoters out there that, do try and, put the name out and, they're not as lucky as, others that, do consistently sell their shows out and, and literally having to turn people away at the door. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, like, I think the CXW Championship Extreme Wrestling, they've not long done their, I believe, 10th show. They've done 9 family-friendly shows, and they've not long done an over 18s deathmatch show. I think that was their 10th show, the deathmatch one, in like the middle of last month or something like that. Yeah, they've got another one coming up in November for over 18s, and then a family-friendly show on, I believe it's the 21st of December, down at the Braintree Community Centre. Yeah, so yeah, go check out Championship Extreme Wrestling. I also work for, I don't actually work for CXW. I've been offered to go down to CXW, but unfortunately I had another booking up in Wakefield for the British Wrestling Federation. Again, the BWF, I've got a show coming up for on the 2nd of November, 8 days before my birthday. Again, the British Wrestling Federation, they put on some very good shows, so go check them out. Like, I think that the BWF are one of these companies that book, like that sort of group of people that I think need to be exposed a bit more, and need to be, wrestling a lot more because they're that fucking good. You've got like a small sort of group of people, that consists of, Callum Jakester, Ramus Kane, Dan Domain, Young Horace, Tommy Rocker, Sammy Blue, Gung Ho Muttley, and I think that those guys need to be on more cards across more companies, across more shows. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, with me personally, I do get asked, by people quite a bit, it's like, how are you getting booked as much as what you are? And it's like, well, for the short story, for anyone that doesn't know how I actually first got started in actually refereeing, I obviously the Nerdic Pro podcast exists. I met a gentleman by the name of the Lion Aaron Sharp at a Falling Star Wrestling event about 3 years ago, at a show in West Lynn in Kings Lynn here in Norfolk. This would have been about 3 years ago, and we sort of kept in contact and whatever. And because he had a big top wrestling show coming up in Hull a couple of weeks afterwards, where he was defending the IPW Germany undisputed heavyweight title against Brett Semtex. Yeah, we met each other there, kept in contact, kept in contact with his partner, Fabrice, the CEO of Lion Wrestling Promotions, LWP. And then he comes on the Nerdic Pro podcast just over 2 years ago. I believe it was the 9th of September 2022. Aaron and Fabrice come on the Nerdic Pro podcast for the first time round. Yeah, he had a match coming up for LWP, which he runs in Boston, in Lincolnshire. So for LWP, for a show that was called Wrestle War, and then so this was a match that was 18 years in the making, and this was a match against a longtime foe of his, in the ring and behind the scenes as well, of the Real Deal Steve Sykes. Now, Aaron had said, like, if fancy coming, I'm like, yeah, I got paid on Friday, so I'll get the tickets on Friday. And he said, nah, don't be stupid, like tickets on me and Fabrice and whatever. Like, you don't need to pay, and like you don't. You might need to get your tickets and whatever. And I'm like, nah, mate, honestly, and whatever. He said, no, Bobby, like, if you want, come backstage, do some podcasting bits and pieces, and what have you. Interview some of the wrestlers, and yeah. So then you'll be like a part of the team for the show. Like, yeah, all right, fuck it. You know what I mean? So, like, the original plan was for me to just do some backstage, pre-match interviews, post-match interviews, and what have you. I ended up doing, Steve Sykes, Brett Hero, Mitchell Sykes, Craig McIntosh, James Bentley. I can't remember who else I did, but yeah. So so I did all that, and then a few days later, like, he rings me up and then goes, "Yeah, you're still coming. How you doing? Like, as you do, yeah, man, yeah, definitely." So and then a few days after that, I was actually coincidentally sat at work, right, and where because I used to work for a holiday park, at the time, and I was funny enough sat in the hire shop, like working in there, and I never got any signal in said hire shop, right? Because the signal around here is fucking diabolical, like, especially like that end of town. And funnily enough, I actually had a bit of signal and a bit of connection for the site's Wi-Fi. Yada yada yada. He then rings me up, Aaron, and then goes like on Facebook Messenger and goes, "You are still definitely coming to Wrestle War, ain't you?" And I'm like, "Yes, yeah." And well, like we get chatting. He goes, "Like, you are definitely coming to Wrestle War, ain't you?" And I'm like, "Yes," And what? Why'd you ask? And he goes, "Well, me and Fabrice have been, like, his partner, CEO of LWP, have been listening and watching some of your podcasts, and we can tell that you're massively passionate about the business, yada yada yada. How do you feel about refereeing me and Sykes?" And I'm like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? So I literally say that I started refereeing because I had signal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And yeah, and I'm like, yeah, fucking hell. Do you know what I mean? But it was literally just want to be like that one and done thing. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have no, like, I obviously, like, I wanted to get involved with wrestling, growing up as a kid and what have you, but it was just trying to find the right time to do it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that had Aaron not have rung me when he did, and had I have not have had signal when I did, I genuinely don't think I would have ever bothered getting involved with the wrestling business. Do you know what I mean? And then, so I'm doing the match with Aaron Sharp and Steve Sykes, fucking belter of a match. And I then go to LWP again at King of the Castle, the King of the Castle show at the Sun Castle in Skegness. Um, and like again, I was only meant to be doing podcasty bits and pieces there. Aaron then goes, "Do you fancy refereeing a match or a couple of matches?" And I'm like, "Fuck it, yeah." You know what I mean? And yeah, so I then refereed Marco Marinelli versus the Alpha Athlete CW Davis in a match in the a first round match in the King of the Castle tournament. And through the Nerdic Pro podcast, I got to know, and like in general, like I got to know several people involved with the wrestling business and what have you. And people that like I was friends with on Facebook, that I'd brought onto the Nerdic Pro podcast, people that I met at shows that I'd Falling Star and what have you, like kept in contact and I kept in touch, and seeing that I started refereeing for LWP, and it was literally just meant to be one and done sort of things, you know what I mean, and what have you. And 2 years later, well, yeah, promoters are asking me, if I've had to come into their show here, that show there, refereeing a couple of matches here, refereeing a couple of matches there. Literally 2 years later, in about 2 weeks, I would have been doing this 2 years now. You know what I mean? And I've worked with so fucking many people. It's unreal. You know what I mean? And I've been a part of 82 different matches now, and yeah, so 59 of which I've refed, 23 of it. Yeah, so I've been a part of 82 different matches, 59 of which I've refed, 23 of it, 23 of which I've announced. Ring announced, being like the MC and what have you. Which I can't lie, if it wasn't for me having signal that day, or Aaron Sharp asking me to, like if I was interested in refereeing his match against Steve Sykes, I wouldn't have bothered getting involved in the rest of the business. I don't think. And as I genuinely don't think I would have even bothered. Do you know what I mean? And because of doing like the refereeing and what have you, I've built up lots of different relationships with people. I speak to people regularly and met people that I consider as really good and really close mates through wrestling, and people that I'd literally speak to every fucking day. You know what I mean? And yeah, so but yeah, I've traveled the country doing various bits and pieces, doing shows up in Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, around here in Norfolk. Do you know what I mean? I've got shows coming up in Bradford. I've got a show coming up in Barnsley at the end of the next month, in Norwich at the end of the next month. Excuse me. I've got a show in Wakefield on the 2nd of November. Yeah, I'm down south for a show at the end of December as well. More details on that should hopefully be coming soon. And yeah, so, but yeah, it's, to me, it's mental. Do you know what I mean? How I've, from literally doing a podcast to getting involved with wrestling and doing what I've managed to achieve in the space of a 2 year period. To me, as someone who's grown up in as a massive wrestling fan, like as a massive fucking supermarket of the business, as they say, I think it's brilliant, and I owe that to the Lion, Aaron Sharp. And I'm friendly with the UK Pitbulls. I speak to Bulk, who was recently who's as seen in the brand new Deadpool and Wolverine film as the Blob. I'm really good mates with him. I'm really good mates with his brother Dave. CW Davis. The Pitbulls and Charlie Davis. So Mike Waters, Dave Waters, and Charlie Davis. I owe the absolute fucking world to. Do you know what I mean? Especially when it comes to giving me my break in the wrestling business. Do you know what I mean? Because I will always have the massive amount of respect for LWP and for Aaron Sharp, as they're the ones that brought me in. And I will always have, I will always have, the world of respect for the UK Pitbulls and CW Davises. They're the ones that trained me. You know what I mean? I do get asked, frequently, like, do I have a favorite promotion to work for, or is there like a favorite company that I've got? Which it's like, the two companies that I will always have more respect and more time for will be Lion Wrestling Promotions and Big Top Wrestling Promotions, as the LWP. They're the ones that brought me in. Do you know what I mean? Big Top are the ones that trained me. Do you know what I mean? So without those two companies, LWP especially, or well, that's all say like a mixture between LWP and BTW. I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now with bookings coming up in Bradford, in Barnsley, in Norwich. Yeah, all right, Norwich is just up the road for me, but in Wakefield, Gosport, it's like fucking. Do you know what I mean? And a few bookings next year already. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, at the minute, I'm in talks with a couple of companies to start working the camps next season as well. So in 2025, to do some shows on a couple of holiday camps as well. Which I've worked a camp, but that wasn't a camp show like a holiday maker show. That was a proper show. That wasn't like a camp show that like you'd see back in the day of so it wasn't. It was put on by OSW. It wasn't brought in by the Beachcomber in Cleethorpes. And whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it was a ticketed event, and it wasn't one of those shows where it was a camp show. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a regular old town, regular old fucking whole show. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm looking into doing a few camps next year and what have you. Do you know what I mean? And yeah. So, but yeah. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, I have been asked, do I favoritize a certain, do I favoritize any particular companies and what have you? In all honesty, I like working for every company that I work for. Do you know what I mean? There's only one individual that I've come across who is a massive con artist, who has conned disabled women as well as wrestlers, right? Who I do not associate with, and I don't think that anyone should, right? But I'm not going to get into that now. Do you know what I mean? So I've been asked, before, do I prioritize companies, or favoritize companies? LWP, Lion Wrestling Promotions, and Big Top Wrestling, as I've just said, will be higher than most, as, LWP, they're the ones that brought me in. And Big Top, like the Pitbulls and fucking CW Davis, like they're the ones that train me. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, right. So, like, enough of blowing smoke up my ass. Let's just get on to fucking Assassin's Creed. So, yeah. So, Sigurd has just come back from his adventures. So, yeah. There. Oh, dear. I'm in Bradford next Saturday for Kingdom Wrestling. October 25th, I'm in Barnsley for Kmart Promotions. October 26th, so the day after Kmart in Barnsley, to the 26th, I'm in Norwich when I return to Classic UK Pro Wrestling, the same company where I'm a former 24/7 champion. Just in case anyone wants to know that. So yeah. Oh yeah, and as a referee, I've held a championship before. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sure that quite a few referees like you will be in the situation of I'm a former wrestling champion. You'll never sing that. So yeah, excuse me. But yeah. Excuse me. So yeah, in Thornburg, in Norway. Yeah, so Kurt Ray the Cruel, that was it. The fellow who I was trying to think of earlier. The boss on here, or one of the bosses on here. So yeah. But yeah, bear with me literally 2 seconds because I need to double check when I've got Clara Carter coming on. Because for those of you that don't know, we here at the Nerdic Pro Podcast have aligned ourselves with the largest wrestling alliance on the planet of the Allied Independent Wrestling Federations. They currently have more than 150 wrestling companies spread out across 49 different countries on the planet. So they're basically like the NWA, but a different company, if you know what I mean. So they're nothing to do with the NWA, but I think that they're a better organization, I think, than the NWA. Nothing against the NWA, do not get me wrong. Do you know what I mean? So we here at the Nerdic Pro Podcast have got the current reigning and defending Allied Independent Wrestling Federation's World Women's Champion of Clara Carter coming on to the Nerdic Pro Podcast within the next couple of days. So I just need to double check now whilst I've got my Xbox on and whilst I can get onto Facebook on it. When specifically that podcast actually is. So I just need to bring up the chat with her just so I can fucking double check. So because I have since forgotten. So yeah. Clara Carter. So yeah, coincidentally, this podcast with Clara Carter will be the first time in Nerdic Pro history. So in nearly 4 years I've been podcasting, I've actually interviewed a female wrestler, funnily enough. But we've had women on previously. We've had Miss Sabrice, who is a wrestling promoter for Live Wrestling Promotions, Aaron Sharp's partner. We've had Tiny online, who is a Twitch streamer and a YouTube streamer, etc. We've had I can't actually remember the poor woman's name, but she is a musician for Nova Status. So in 2 days' time, I think. What is the date today? Tomorrow. Bollocks. Right, yeah, I need to get that bloody reminded to everyone. So yeah, tomorrow Monday. So Monday, the 23rd of September. Hang on, I just need to double check. Bear with me. I've been meaning to sort of but yeah, so we've had Sabrice on twice. We've had Tony online, who is a Twitch streamer, content creator, and YouTube streamer, etc. We've had so Sabrice is the promoter for AWP, Tiny from Twitch, and again I can't actually remember the poor woman's name, but she's a musician for a Peterborough-based band of Nova Status. So. Yeah. So this is the problem when you book podcasts like 6 weeks in advance. You tend to forget, especially me. Everything is right. So yeah. Fingers crossed tomorrow. With the current ARWF Women's World Champion of Clara Carter. For the podcast. Clara Carter is also previously, a couple of months ago, seen in All Elite Wrestling, AEW. So yeah, I can't actually think off the top of my head who it was she wrestled. But she's wrestled on TV for AEW. So same as Barrett Brown. He was on here a couple of weeks ago. He has wrestled for, he's wrestled for the NWA. He's wrestled for Ring of Honor recently. Wrestled for AEW recently. He was the last ever NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. He has wrestled for Evolve, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and has even wrestled for the WWE as well. So yeah. So right. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Pro Podcast, my name has, as per usual, been Bobby effing Salastar, and I would like to thank those of you who have been watching live, and I'd like to thank those of you who will be watching on the replays. If you haven't already, then please do go check out the Nerdic Pro Podcast home platform of Facebook, where you can find 99% of our podcasts, as well as go check out our Spotify page. Not updated Spotify for a while, but we are on Spotify as well. So if you haven't already, then please do go check us out on the Nerdic Pro Podcast Facebook and Spotify pages. As well as if you haven't already, then please do give us a subscribe here on YouTube, as it really would massively help us out. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Pro Podcast, my name has, as per usual, been Bobby effing Salastar, and I shall be seeing you all later. Thank you to those of you who are watching live, And thank you all very much to those of you who will be watching on the replays. Thank you all very much, and goodbye.